I'm Bart, and welcome to the Chapter 4. In the last chapter, we demonstrate that you can do smart contracts using Bitcoin. In this chapter, we will focus on tokenization. Once you use the script, you can tokenize everything. Assets, tickets, securities, everything will be tokenized on the blockchain to increase efficiency. In this chapter, we will talk about different protocols for tokenization using Bitcoin. We will start with a presentation with Kane to explain the STAS token protocol. Enjoy the chapter.
Thank you, everyone, for having me today. So today, I'll be speaking about STAS tokens, and I'll just go over a lot of details, but I won't go into the very technical side. There's a lot of documentation on that if you want to get into the real deep parts of that. But I want to go over really explaining STAS tokens, what they are, and what they can be used for. So the contents for today, first thing we'll go over is what is a STAS token, and then also we'll go over the different templates available. There's not just one STAS token. There are different templates. They have different features, and we'll go over those as well. Thirdly, we'll go over the functionality of the STAS tokens, different features, and some of the libraries that are available as well. I will also cover what's next for STAS, what's coming up, and some insights to that. And then we'll also look at some applications currently using STAS tokens today. Okay, so we'll just start with what is a STAS token. So STAS stands for Substantiated Tokens from Actualized Satoshis, which basically means that Satoshis being the native currency of the blockchain, we can utilize those to construct STAS tokens. That's the main, sort of like a broad definition there. But really a STAS token is a smart contract. It's built in Bitcoin script, which is like an assembly type code. So each smart contract, referring to STAS, it basically locks in the native Satoshis, and it then allows for only specific types of transactions to be created. And so it really encapsulates the Satoshis, and then you have now not a Satoshi by itself anymore, but you have a rule set as part of that now STAS token. So STAS tokens, plural, they're a set of smart contract templates. So they all have different features, rule sets, as I mentioned before, and this allows you to sort of choose which one is suitable for different applications, which I'll go over a bit more in detail later on. And just maybe the most simplistic definition here is, STAS tokens, they're considered a layer 0 token because they actually encapsulate the native Satoshis on the blockchain. That means they're truly on-chain tokens. And, that means that you really take on the blockchain's features as by default, and you don't have to worry about, higher level, third party or functionality to handle your tokens at that point. I think it's also important to understand the application scope when you're building applications for STAS. And just go over a quick, brief overview of this. So the blockchain, obviously, that's going to look after the ownership, the scalability, the security, and also it provides basically the backbone for tokens themselves. STAS smart contract is built using the blockchain, built on the blockchain, so it's actually part of the blockchain, and not, as I mentioned, not on another layer. Then obviously you have your application infrastructure. This can be considered sort of like your operations. When you wanted to sort of construct transactions to interact with the blockchain, you would use your operations to handle all your UTXO information. UTXOs, we'll get into more details later, but basically all your STAS tokens and all your users, you would handle all of that on the operations layer there. And obviously, last of all, you have your front end, and that would be your users be able to see their tokens, their NFTs or their images or whatever it is they have, and be able to interact with them and then it all flows back to the blockchain when they interact. So that's just a sort of a broad overview, just to, sort of understand where everything sits there. So I sometimes get the question still today, and people ask me, so what really is a stars token? And I think today this is where I can really break things down a bit more so people can understand that. So here, this is an example of a stars token, right? So if we're looking at this, it looks very scary. It's got a lot of opcodes here. It's written in Bitcoin script, which is an assembly type language, and it's not commonly used in the developer space. But I'll show you what each part is and what is really relevant to developers and what is actually relevant even to users. So if we go through the first parts here, we have the owner of the token. So the owner is basically a pay to public key hash locking script, which basically is the most common type of locking script on the BSV Bitcoin blockchain today. So you can unlock this with just a private key. You can just spend those funds. So stars tokens utilize that same standard unlocking script to be able to spend the tokens. So users actually utilize that. So the next part, which is the scary part, right? This is the actual stars token and the rule set. So this is built by the engineers at the stars token company. I've had the privilege of working with them very closely the last couple of years, and I helped to build out the SDKs and libraries to utilize the tokens. So I don't specifically write these tokens. I don't understand all of this instruction set that is in these opcodes, but I do understand the functionality and the requirements to build the unlocking scripts as part of the SDKs. But as I mentioned, this is the hard work already done. So this code here would never change throughout the token's lifespan, and you'll actually never use this code. The only part that will use this code is the SDK libraries, which already provide the functionality. So yeah, it's not once you take that away, is not much left after that. So the next part we have here down the bottom, you can see is the issuer address. This is added after the main stars token code. So this is standard in all the stars tokens, and it's also known as the redemption address. And we'll get more into redemptions later, which is basically destroying tokens and how that works. But the redemption address means that the issuer who issued the token, the address is always added to the end of the stars script itself. So here, the next part is just the token symbol, and it looks a bit weird. It's all written in hexadecimal here. So if you break that down back into ASCII format, then you'll see that it translates into a token symbol name. So token symbol comes after the redemption address, pretty basic, and this is also standard within all of the stars tokens as part of using the SDK. And last of all, you have the metadata. So this can be anything, right? It just depends on your application, depends on how you want to interact with your tokens in the in the UI or the type of data you want to handle, right? So a lot of applications use JSON format, which is pretty standard. We use a multiple different standards, and currently in the process of building out some global standard examples that we'll hopefully go through some some testing and some discussion with some of the key parties involved in the stars ecosystem, so we can have some real long-term standards that we can all sort of agree upon for data. But in saying that, applications, they can just have their own custom data. It doesn't really matter if you don't want your application to go outside of the scope of your own application. You can just construct your own data and just utilize what you need. So that sort of sums up the scary part, I think. And I think we should also cover UTXOs and stars, because UTXOs is not always people are not very familiar if they're coming from an account-based blockchain. So UTXOs, they're basically the building blocks for transactions. So UTXO stands for unspent transaction output. So it means it's just not spent yet. And what the miners do on the blockchain is they basically they just maintain that state of each of the UTXOs and make sure there's no double spends. That is the security model really of the UTXOs. And STARS basically is a UTXO. It's just a Satoshi wrapped with extra functionality. So as I mentioned, each UTXO contains a native blockchain currency known as Satoshi. And each UTXO can be spent without requiring knowledge of the state of the other UTXOs on the network. And this is a very key point to make, because when we're talking about building token protocols and building these technologies, we want to build it on something that's going to have longevity and not going to become a hindrance later on and a waste of time. So what that means is we need a scalable blockchain. So with a UTXO-based blockchain, you can spend many UTXOs that are available to be spent, and you can do that all at the same time because they only care about themselves. They're very selfish things, but you can also combine them in one transaction multiple into one transaction. But a UTXO, it will always act as an input into a new transaction so it can be spent. And then to spend it, you just basically have to unlock that UTXO because it has a locking script. You have to unlock it with whatever method is required. So as I mentioned, each STARS token locks in a normal amount of Satoshis, but it leverages the benefits of the blockchain itself, right? The scalability, the preventing double spends, the security, and the power of transactions and the horizontal scaling. All of these great benefits starts to get that just by utilizing the Satoshis that already exist on the network. So here I'll just show you an example. So imagine you had 4 UTXOs with all different amounts, and you wanted to, send transactions all at the same time. You could easily do that, and they could all do different for different transactions or different use cases, right? So here, an example, you can mint one with a STARS token. One of them you could spend some BSV to send to somewhere else. Then you could, use one for transaction fees or other smart contracts. So this really, shows that, it's very dynamic. It's not, you don't have to worry about the entire network updating after every transaction. It really adds that extra layer of scalability to the blockchain. And I'll just also quickly go over unlocking UTXOs. I did briefly touch on that already. So, each UTXO contains a locking script. Now, a locking script could be anything. It doesn't have to require a private key. I've created locking scripts that says, 2 + 2 = something. And if you add 4, it will unlock the script, right? I mean, that's the best thing about Bitcoin scripts is that, it is really designed that you could build any type of smart contract and transaction, hence why STARS tokens basically exist today. So the most common transaction will be a pay to public key hash transaction. That can be unlocked with a private key, and it's a very secure way and the most common way a transaction occurs on the BSV blockchain. So as I mentioned, the STARS utilizes the same pay to public key hash locking script methods, and that just makes it basically universal as part of the main way to make transactions on the BSV blockchain. So what it's really all about is transforming a native Satoshi into a STARS token, and to do so, it actually takes 2 separate transactions. And we'll go a bit more detail in a moment, but there is a contract and there's an issuance transaction involved. As part of that, the contract, it sort of defines what the token is. It's like a blueprint. It has all the information about the token, even your legal things. It could be it could be any type of metadata, any type of documents you might need to add to your tokens. You can add that as part of the contract. So then the issuance is basically the tokens afterwards. So what happens is that the contract is defined, the contract holds the Satoshis required to issue the tokens, and then the next step is to spend the contract, and then you issue the tokens. And then, basically that outcomes out comes a stars token from a normal Satoshi, right? So minting stars tokens, we'll go into a bit more detail here. So a contract transaction, as I mentioned, is a schema blueprint of the token. So there is standards around this already. You'll find that in some of the other documentation through the SDK or the stars docs, which I'll go over later on as well. And part of the schema, it contains a lot of mandatory sort of information, things like your token supply, your token symbol, and these things have to actually match what you've put into the, it will come out in the issuance of the tokens in the end. So what you would do is you'd fill this in, and as I mentioned, there's already standards there, and you can also add in custom information, right? So if there is something that's not part of that schema, you can very easily add that in as a reference point, because tokens can be used for obviously so many use cases, and you just never know what you really need to add as a part of the contract. So the issuance will spend the contract, as I mentioned. So the token supply defined in the contract will match the amount of Satoshis that are locked in the contract. So then when you issue it, it will be the correct amount of tokens. So when you issue your tokens, you can issue it to a single address, you can issue it to multiple addresses, and you can also add in custom metadata to each of them if they're an NFT or a unique, a unique digital asset. But it's very dynamic. You can do a lot of different things with issuance. It's not restricted to just having a single output at the end of the issuance. So it can really cater to different use cases and those things. And once you've done your contract transaction, you'll have a transaction ID, you have an issuance transaction ID, and these can be used as reference points to your token in the future. So we'll dive into now the stars token templates a bit. Currently, there are 4 available. There are many more already in the works, and we'll cover some of that a bit later on. So I'll go into detail a bit more of these, but basically these 4 give you a lot of variety because they can be used for so many different things. Tokens, being fungible, you can split them, you can add them together in transactions to compound them. But then you can also have ones that you might need to be unique, and you don't want to be able to merge them later on. So you can have things that can never be merged, no matter how it goes. You can never merge them with another one. And you can add dynamic metadata to each one. So, you can imagine creating a NFT collection of 1,000. You could have different images, different metadata for each, much like an NFT type marketplace, you could say. And as I mentioned, like each of the stars templates, they have different rule sets and different features and functionality as well. So we'll go over that just in a moment. So the stars legacy token. So this was the original one that came out. So it was initially released around 2020. It wasn't really utilized until around 2021 when the SDK was sort of up and running, which was from another company called Tile. So they released the SDK. I started using it straight away. There was some modifications as we went forward, and there was still some features to be added in over the 6 months after it was released. But it was very exciting when it came out, and I basically deep dived into it after that. So the legacy stars tokens, they're a dynamic version, so you can actually make them splittable and mergeable or not by adding a small prefix to the token script. So when I showed you the big script before with the the big all the opcodes, there's actually an extra element between the redemption address and the token symbol, which is just the flags. And the flags is basically a 00 or a 01, true or false, right? So, set to true, it's splittable, and set to false, it's not splittable. And that is actually still part of the legacy stars template. That's one feature that it has. It comes with all the general functionality of all the other tokens, such as transferring, atomic swaps, redemptions, all of that. So now I'd like to introduce to you the stars 20 token.
Introducing the STARS-20 token format, the innovative solution to issue and redeem stablecoins on the BSV blockchain. Experience seamless micropayments across retail, banking, digital commerce and business as real-time adoption accelerates. Embrace the cutting-edge technology and unlock the potential of digital currencies today with fast onboarding and ultra-low-cost transactions. Visit starstoken.com to learn more and be part of the future of money.
Okay, so STARS-20 token. So this one was released at the start of the year. I actually had access to this around just late last year and started working on some implementations of utilizing it. So when we first had it, there was no SDKs that supported it. At that point, we were already looking at building an SDK, but I was already working on other things that I had to work on first. But during that time, I spent a bit of time thinking about how to integrate these new templates. And so it was actually really good for me to plan it in my mind before I actually really knuckled down to build it. And we have multiple new templates, and the idea was to build an SDK that could cater for even more templates as we move forward. So the STARS-20 it's a very unique template that is used generally for stable coins in particular. We have a client, or we know someone in particular, we'll go through him later, from Senti. They have a stable coin, a bank guaranteed one, a Swiss franc. So there's a lot of features added to this token, and it's great for different types of utility tokens, security tokens, and obviously stable coins, as I mentioned as well. So one of the main ones added to this token is the redemption functionality. It's different to the other tokens, and this one in particular only allows the issuer to destroy the token or redeem the token. And when I say destroy, I mean just convert the token from a STARS token that's been locked and then convert it back to a regular Satoshi. So this means that if you're creating a stable coin that is legal, that is bank guaranteed, then you don't have someone just can't come along and destroy your money that you've issued. And that's a key point to take into effect here. So imagine that you've created these tokens. You have to worry about accounting. You have to worry about the legal aspects, and you don't want someone to just be able to destroy your tokens and then your accounting's all off it after that point. So this was this was fully ready for us around March, and then we added it to the SDK around May once we released it. There's also an extra functionality for a notes output, and this means you can just add in any type of data to a transaction. And this doesn't just have to be like transaction information. It could be absolutely anything, and you could really dive into different use cases where your application might require some sort of other data as part of a token being moved, and that could be utilized further in your application and maybe further in your user experience, right? So it's really dynamic by having this in there. I think it adds the extra level of flexibility. So I'll just introduce you now the STARS 789 token.
Welcome to the era of integrity in data management. Introducing the STARS 789 token protocol. With appendable smart contracts, the possibilities for tracking, document flows, ticketing, and other use cases are unbounded. Experience the power of the first ever real blockchain database, securing and storing your data like never before. Embrace the innovation of appendable data smart contracts. Visit starstoken.com to get started today.
Okay, so that's the little promo video we have for the STARS 789 token. So it's called 789 because the idea is that you can append more data to the token in an immutable fashion. The name we sort of had different names in the past, and this is the one we came up with in the end. so what I really like about this token is that it really becomes a blockchain within a blockchain, right? So a token is already on the blockchain. You have all the transactions, they're all connected. Now imagine your data being added to this token and it is all connected as well, in an immutable fashion, which is key, right? That means you have data integrity within a token. So token entry, a token data entry can be transferred to another address, for example, with extra data added into the token. So it doesn't have to be, full data. It could just be a hash of some data that you want to add, and that is used to prove something that was added. If you provide the data, you can hash that and then say, here it is, and this is the timestamp when it actually occurred on the blockchain. So there's a lot of different ways you can, work with supply chain, data management, and really excited to see a lot of use cases being built with this token. Generally, at the moment, what people are using it for is NFTs. NFTs are still a fairly big thing, right? So NFTs, with this token, you can actually upgrade an NFT. It's not just a set NFT that will always be the same. So you can imagine that, after a time, maybe these NFTs get upgraded to something else, and the users may not know what it's going to be upgraded to, and then all of a sudden they have something different, and that could be a key to driving, marketplaces for NFTs with different models, right? This is what it's all about: having some sort of flexibility with what you're building, to add some, additional user experience, rather than just trading something back and forth. So a star 789 token can be issued, make a transaction, you add a new data block, and then you can make another transaction, add another data block. You can also add multiple data blocks in a single transaction as well. So it's not limited to a single part. So that covers the templates, and now we'll talk about atomic swaps, which is, I think, probably the most used features of stars tokens, and maybe tokens in general, right? So atomic swaps, they basically allow two parties to exchange two different types of digital assets directly with each other, so you don't need a third party, and that's where you're cutting out the friction. So that's the massive innovation there. And the process ensures that, it's either going to be an all or nothing approach, right? So it's not going to be one person will get it, the other person didn't for whatever reason. It's always going to be that they both will receive if the transaction is completed. So the Stars Atomic Swap, it involves two parties. The first party is the maker. The maker is the person that has something they want to swap. They want to swap it for something else. And they may select that and they say, I want to get, for example, 1,000 Satoshis for this digital asset. So they can add what you call an input, which is the thing they want to sell, and then they can add to a transaction an output, which is what they want to receive, and they can assign that to their own address. So at that point, what you have is an offer. So this offer is basically, you could say, a half a transaction. It's not completed. So if you were to broadcast this to the network, it would completely fail because the input is there and the output is there, but there's no input to cover the output in that transaction. So that's where we would reach the next party, which is the taker. So the taker basically will supply an input that will cover the maker's output, is what they actually want to receive. So as I mentioned with this example, if there was 1,000 Satoshis that they wanted as an output, the taker would have to supply 1,000 Satoshis as an input to validate just that part of the transaction. The next thing the taker would do now that the output has been covered, they would assign the input from the maker to themselves and as another output. So that means now you have both parties that have exactly what they require for the atomic swap. So the other thing is the taker would also have to provide the input for the transaction fee. So they would also add that extra input, but it doesn't have to actually come from the taker. The taker could be a user, right? And the user may not have any native currency. For example, if they were doing a swap for a token or an NFT for an NFT, they may not necessarily hold any native currency. So you can always do this through the platform using a third party, because each user can sign their own inputs, and then the platform could sign for a fee to pay the fee for the transaction, and then the transaction can be broadcasted to the network. So this is a bit more of an overview of the atomic swaps and how it works. So if we look over at the first part, you've got the maker partial transaction here. So this is where I said the inputs. The input is what their asset they're offering, and the output is what they actually want to receive. And then the taker will put in the input to cover for the output, and then take the output from the maker. Additionally, in this one, I'm just showing the example that you can add in extra outputs to the transaction. So imagine that the maker wanted 1,000 satoshis, but your platform says, well, we want to also give 100 satoshis to the content creator of that that NFT, and we want to give 100 satoshis to the platform, and that way we cover all of our expenses, right? So now the taker would then have to provide a input for not 1,000 satoshis, but 1,200 satoshis. It would cover all of the required outputs in that case. Also, the fee input would always be considered a separate type of entry and a separate type of output in that case. So hopefully that sort of covers the whole idea around atomic swaps and a bit of the flexibility with that. And just to get a bit more clarity, I'm sure many of you know the atomic swap marketplaces, how it would work. With stars tokens, it would work very much the same. You'd have a user, it'd be the maker, so they would have a bunch of NFTs, and they'd say, I want to sell some, or I want to swap some. So they could actually, create an offer. They select which one they want to sell or swap. Sorry. And they add it to a list of market offers, right? So the application could hold these market offers, and then allow another user to browse that market and then look for one they want to swap. And once they're happy with one they find, they can accept that swap. And the way this would work is that as I mentioned, the offers are like a half a transaction, but the half transaction holds the metadata of the tokens involved in that transaction as well. So you can provide that information to the users in your application just by having that offer transaction, and you won't need to reference that information elsewhere. So now I'll just cover redeeming, which, as I mentioned before, is basically destroying tokens or getting back the satoshis that were previously locked. So yeah, it's basically we're going to convert it back to satoshis, and then it's back to the normal native currency. Now, what's important to know is that stars tokens, they really lock the satoshis in. So as I mentioned about the smart contracts that are built, it makes sure that that a transaction is only valid based on certain circumstances. So you will only be able to do specialized functions or specialized transactions with these tokens, and the SDK provides all of those transaction types so that you can just select which one you want to do. So there's actually nothing else to add to the SDK in terms of functionality. It holds all the functionality that already exists for these tokens. One key point is that the redeemed satoshis will always go back to the issuer address and not to the owner of the stars token. And this is default in all of the stars tokens. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I think the main one is that if you're creating, for example, some tokens or NFTs, and they're locking up some satoshis, and just say the user didn't really pay for these satoshis, but they think, oh, I want to get these satoshis and unlock them and take them, they cannot do that. So if they destroy it, basically, if they destroy the NFT or destroy the token, they don't get the satoshis back. All they have is just a destroyed NFT or token that they previously had before. So yeah, that's as a default for all the tokens today, but it doesn't mean that the future templates will all be the same. It really comes down to demand. So if the engineers get a lot of demand for a token that it can be destroyed and then redeemed to the owner, this would also be created as a template, maybe with some additional features. But at the moment, all the redemptions go back to the issuer address. The STARS-20 token, as I mentioned about redemption before, is that only the issuer can destroy the tokens, which safeguards any accidental destroying or malicious destroying of tokens that are in circulation. You can also redeem a portion of your tokens. So if you have, 1,000 tokens as an input, you could redeem maybe 500, where you could just destroy 500 and then also assign 500 tokens to another address, if you like. So I also want to cover transaction fees. This is a big point in the blockchain space. We're already seeing today the BTC transaction fees are $10 each, right? And it's very hard to build token models on high fees. We look at Ethereum, we know the fees are always going up and down, but they're always quite substantial. And this limits a lot of innovation because you have to base what you're building on high transaction fees or future high transaction fees, right? So as I mentioned about a scalable blockchain, it provides a sustainable long-term low fee model. And that means that, if you build an application today that is reliant on low fees, that means in the future, your application will still be running. But if you build it on a blockchain that the fees eventually hit a bottleneck and the transaction fees start going higher, well, then you'll start to lose your application scope within your users because they're expecting small fees. So you can imagine that STARS tokens, the reason why you see it built on the BSV blockchain is because it's all about longevity in the end. You want to build something that's going to last a long time. You need to also build it on the correct model that can handle a lot of volume in transactions, and while the fees still remain low. So to get to fees about STARS, to send one STARS to another address, it costs you 4 Satoshis today. Okay, 4 Satoshis is not a lot. It's a lot of zeros and then a 2. Okay, so that's how much it will cost to send one, or to visualize it a bit better, 10,000 token sends for 2 cents, right? So you could build a lot of different things, right? And the main point, I guess, is for developers and entrepreneurs looking to play around with different token protocols like STARS. The risks are very, very low to get started, right? Because you're not having to outlay a lot of funds to cover your transaction fees just to get started. So the risk is low. People can just jump in and start, building transactions, playing around with the network, and it'll probably only cost you a few cents over the first couple of months. So then, everybody's happy in the end. And that's where we expect to see a lot more growth, because it does also open the doors to, a more of a global developer base that maybe doesn't have the resources to provide, large amounts of money for transaction fees. And on the BSV network, you can generally earn, Satoshis very easily by, doing some surveys or doing promoting some links, and they pay you small micropayments. And that would get you through many weeks of testing just by earning maybe like 10 or 20,000 Satoshis by clicking a few links and reading a few and doing a few surveys. So the STARS SDK, as I mentioned, I spent about the first 2 weeks building it. I already knew exactly what I was doing. It just poured out of me. It was very easy because I had a lot of time planning it mentally. It was actually a lot of fun building it because I learned a lot of things during the process. So this was released around May this year, and it contains all of the templates, all of the token templates, and a lot of advanced features as well. So we'll get into a few of those. So the features that are added in, obviously I mentioned the different templates, and in the documentation you'll have a table that shows you all the different features for each of the templates. And that way you can, as a developer, if you want to build tokens, you can look and see which one will suit your application, and then you have a really good clarity on how that would look. So all the functionality is built in for every single STARS token. So there's nothing else to add except for more templates and more features down the track. So I've added in some more features, such as fee estimates. So previously when I was running code, I had to sort of assume fee costs So now you have a fee estimate function, so you can construct any transaction function, and it will tell you how much it will cost. And then you can assign a UTXO to pay the fees, right? As part of the fee estimates function, I've added in a zero change outputs. So what that means is that you can construct a transaction with an input to pay for the fees, but it won't have an output in the transaction. And it sounds very trivial, but the unlocking scripts change when you take out one of the outputs. So I had to make it dynamic so that you could have both ways. And this is something that suits us very well. Working at Vianex, we build out the infrastructure to handle STARS tokens and UTXOs. Is that, if we wanted to do an airdrop, we think about use cases. If you want to do an airdrop of NFTs to like a bunch of users on your application, you'd have to construct, 1,000 transactions, right? So I don't want to provide 1,000 separate UTXOs to pay the fees for each of those, especially if I want to, broadcast these in parallel to the network. So what this means is that I can construct the fee UTXO for each of the transactions, and I don't have to worry about any change remaining afterwards. So essentially, if I already know that if I get the fee estimates, I know it's only 4 Satoshis each, and I need to send 1,000 transactions, I can create a pre-transaction that will contain 1,000 outputs of 4 Satoshis each, and I assigned each one of those to each of the transactions and broadcast them all at once. It makes it very easy for us as a developer, and I think others will find it very useful going forward as well, especially when they start to build things at scale. There's also the unsigned transaction format. So if you're working with a non-custodial type application and you want the signing of the transactions to happen on the client side, we can provide the unsigned transaction so that it can be passed to the user to sign, which then can be passed back to be broadcasted. As I mentioned, the atomic swaps has added the additional commissions outputs, which could be for any use case. But that just gives that a little bit more flexibility, I think, with atomic swaps. There's also some test functions in there. There's a 2-minute mint. Literally, you just have to, fund a private key with some funds, click and just run the script, and it will just basically mint a token, and it will also redeem it. Because it's just a test, we sort of just mint it and then we redeem it, and then you can check it on the blockchain to see all the transactions there. If you don't have any BSV to test it, there's also a non-broadcasting testing functions that you can do for minting, and that will just give you the entire transaction as a hexadecimal, and then you can play around with it without having to, fund it initially. As part of that, I use just some template, fake UTXOs to pay the fees and such. But it gives a bit more of an idea if you don't want to, if you don't have the funds to start out. As I mentioned, the STARS, SDK, it basically provides everything you need, and you can build applications just by utilizing single functions from that SDK. And it's really not that extensive. It just provides all the core functionality you need to handle tokens and do everything generally. So there's STARS documentation. You can find it docs.starstoken.com, and it's nicely presented. It's got a lot of details about the different tokens, and the instant mint, how you could run that in the Node.js setup, and also the details if you want to get into the really sort of advanced features with metadata and how to add different types of metadata to different types of tokens in the same transaction. That's all added in as well. And of course, the advanced features, as I mentioned, the fee estimates, the zero change and unsigned transactions added there. You can also go to starstoken.com and, just have a look at, some of the reviews on it already, some of the core functionality things. There's some groups you can also get into to discuss, development. And there's also a dashboard to get started. If you want to just issue your first token, you can check that out, and you can, mint tokens or NFTs. If you go down and check out the token details, you see it has all these metadata you can add in as well. So this is legal governing law, if that's applicable to you. Most people it won't be, but these are added in. And as I mentioned, there's always custom fields you can add in, but this is just sort of written up in a UI so you can see it all in action. So Realizia is a wallet infrastructure that I actually work on. So we integrate stars tokens there. So, here's an account. We can sort of create an NFT. We can upload an image, put this 1 megabyte hard disk there. And it's very seamless. It's very easy. In this one, we sort of fill in most of the schema ourselves in the back end. So description is 1 megabyte is really, really small. And symbol 1 meg. So token supply, I think we set it to 1 because it's only 1 meg. And what we do in Malaysia, we actually upload the image to the blockchain first, then we embed that transaction ID inside the stars token, so that now you have an on-chain NFT, and you can see there's the image and it's in your wallet now. So so the whole idea is that you can keep everything on chain if you want to. And then if you check the transaction on the blockchain, you can sort of see how the metadata might look. So if you look in ASC format, you can see down here, we highlight the 1 meg, which is the token symbol there, and the remainder of the metadata, so which is just, just a different format there. Okay, so now we get to have a look at some of the real world applications using stars. This has been, we're seeing a lot of more interest in stars tokens at the moment. There's people wanting to just experiment and play around with it, which is fantastic. And as I mentioned, there's a very low barrier to entry. Everything's open source. The blockchain is public. So there's nothing stopping anyone just just getting in there, having a go. I guess the only thing, if they really want to have a turn, they just have to earn a bit of BSV. Like I mentioned, there's many places you can do that very trivially. Or you can also find some exchanges that would, you could always get some BSV to start out. And as I mentioned, if you only got $1 worth of BSV, that would last months of development, just playing around and doing transactions. It just lasts so long. Which is fantastic for especially for startups that don't have a lot of funding just to get going, and they just want to have a turn. This is blockchain innovation's increasing, right? So there's a lot more opportunity still. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more world assets becoming digital in some form. So I'll just present you with NFTana, which is a digital asset marketplace. So we've created this as part of the Vianex company, using our infrastructure and our APIs that interact with the blockchain, utilizing stars token. Okay, so that's NFTana. You might have seen it's open source code, so you can actually take it and just throw your own skin on it and make your own digital marketplace using stars tokens, which is a fantastic little tool for people starting out or just wanting to experiment. As I mentioned in the previous slides, we're talking about marketplaces. It's very simple. It's basically users can create NFTs or create digital assets, and they can trade it for native currency on the blockchain. So next we have here is Senti. And Senti is utilizing the Stars 20 template for their stablecoin. So they have the Swiss franc stablecoin, and it's a bank guaranteed. So what that means is that even if Senti, the company, were to disappear, the bank would guarantee the tokens that are already on the blockchain as part of that contract. So they've obviously done all the legal things to cover that side of it, and now they just utilize the blockchain and the very cheap fees, obviously, to make transactions occur. So, sending Swiss franc is costing, almost nothing, like literally almost nothing, where, it's really going to cut out those Visa payment fees and those type of things. So they have a lot of merchants already involved, and they're actively building out their user base at the moment. Music Art, these guys, they were one of the first company to adopt the stars tokens. I remember working with them, helping them out with this, and it was great to sort of see these guys jump first in. And at the very beginning, there's always going to be a few more issues because you're trying to work a few things out, and the SDKs weren't quite up to scratch at that point. But the platform's great. You can basically trade NFTs, and it works seamlessly. Slictionary. So this is another one that it's a different model, right? So it's about monetizing word definitions, and they're using the stars token as the words themselves. So they embed all the metadata in the stars token, and then that can be transferred and also earn money through their platform. Sandoshi, these guys, I met the CEO back in June at the conference. These are great guys. They're building a really fantastic platform for music streaming. Really excited to see what they develop over the next 12 months. It's going to be really, really exciting. DXS app, trading platform using stars tokens. These guys are highly skilled. They also build an SDK for stars tokens as well. These guys are kicking a lot of goals. They have a very clear vision of what they want to build. And I've seen their products sort of evolve over time, and I'm very impressed with what they've done. Here we'll just do a bit of reference of the libraries available. So we have the Stars SDK that I created as part of the Stars token company and the Vinex company that I'm working for. And so that one's available. There's also the Tile Stars.js library. This one was the original library that came out. It has great features, the same. It's a little bit different formats, but it has all the functionality. It doesn't support all of the templates as yet, but I expect them to either adopt that or we'll see how things go down the track there. So the Stars SDK by DXS, that's a TypeScript, very, very good SDK, very lightweight, and they've done a great job with that one. So indexes, if you're looking for, a blockchain indexer that will tell you what tokens your addresses own, for example, you can go check out bittails.io or whatsonchain.com. And that gives you, basically some tools to interact with the blockchain to find out where stars tokens are on the blockchain, and if some are spent or unspent, and these type of helpful tools. Okay, so what's next for stars tokens? It's going to be a crazy ride, I got to tell you. So first, we're going to have a lot of new templates, a lot of new and exciting features. So when we think about tokens with permissioned abilities and multi-signature, this is, a lot of people have been asking about this because some platforms don't want to rely on just users signing, because there could be maybe a hack on their account. So they want to have a multi-sig, which gives that extra layer of security. So these type of tokens are coming up as well. Royalty tokens, where you have mandatory additional outputs added to a transaction. So you could define, for example, the type of output that is required as addition to a normal transfer. And that means you can pay people like content creators or multiple parties that were involved maybe in the NFT creation or the digital asset creation, to really spread out revenue in a really dynamic way, and also in an atomic way, because you're doing it all within a single transaction, and it has to be created that way for it to occur. So which is really at the heart of what Stars is the rule set. You're working on rock, right? You're not working with something that's going to be all flubbly later and fall apart. You know exactly what the Stars token does. You don't have to worry about anything bad happening to your token. It's not going to, turn into a mouse and run away. It's going to always be there, and you can rely on it. So mutable data tokens, that would allow you to, add and remove data from tokens, which I think gives that extra layer of flexibility, right, for certain use cases. And the whole idea is to build templates that will be used. So we get a lot of questions about templates, and specifically the royalty ones, and also the mutable data. We've had this also come up, but the stars token engineers, they look at scripts, and they really consider whether it's going to be worthwhile to build these things, and they put a lot of thought into how to build them to make sure it covers enough features to make them make it long-term successful for that specific templates. So we also have some lightweight transaction templates. These are just smaller templates, at least less features. But if you just want a token or an NFT, you want to just be able to mint it and send it, those scripts can be a lot smaller, which, it's not really that big of an issue because the transaction fees are so low already. But, if you don't really need to do atomic swaps or other things, then this lightweight one might be for you. And Stars 3.0, I'm not going to really talk much about that. It's something big, so keep an eye out for that, and really excited. I actually haven't even had a chance to play around with it yet, and I'm still waiting for the day. So when I do, I'm super excited too, and I think it's going to be a bit of a game changer. Okay, that's it, guys. I hope that gives you a really good overview of Stars tokens without going too deep. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We will move to the questions and answers. Anybody has a question?
Thank you, Kane. I have a question regarding the new Stars token 20. It's about, did you solve the consolidation problems with the inputs that previously we had with the legacy version?
So the Stars 20 still has that limitation in place. We utilize our merging logic to get around this. As you know, with the network, you can broadcast many transactions at once. I work closely with some of the guys from Tile on this issue. I provide a lot of test code using Stars tokens, and the whole idea is that we're able to broadcast batches of transactions with a chained type of structure. So essentially, currently we're still limited to 2 inputs in the transaction for that case. But is it solved for other templates? This is something we'll have to wait and see, right? I'm not going to really talk about these things that I'm not exactly sure I'm allowed to talk about. But for now, the Stars 20, right, is it still requires the multiple merging. But through our company, with Vianex and through Realizia, our infrastructure, we've come up with some pretty cool models. And also the DXS guys, I think they've come up with their own unique model to handle these type of situations. So I think the worst case scenario is that you end up with a lot of really small UTXOs, and you need to spend all of those for one transaction. And that creates many transactions, right? Because you need to consolidate it. For us, it's sort of like a rare case, but we cater for the rare cases. But it's, what that means is that there are times where you'll have to just broadcast more transactions than what you really want to, but you just have to. But it's not something that we find is a very common practice with some of our UTXO management methods.
Hi, this is Augusto. I want to ask, what is the main benefit of using Stars protocol instead of using other token protocols, and especially to ones at Ordinal? And why, as a developer, we should use Stars instead of other tokens protocol?
For me, the most beneficial part of Stars is that you know what you have and the blockchain knows what it is. That's the two things. So I guess the difference with ordinals is that you can mint an ordinal, but then after you've minted it, then it becomes just a regular Satoshi that's floating around, and you don't know what it is unless you follow it and you chase the indexes to know what it is. Now with stars tokens, right, the data, the metadata is already there inside the script. It can't be altered, so you know what you have. Well, you still need to index it. You don't have to index the information about the token unless you want to know the contract. But if you just want to, whatever you embed, you can embed whatever you want inside the stars token as well. So you can embed the entire contract into the stars token if you want to. But the whole idea is that you should embed what you need to make it functional. So that means that if you're using it within an application, as long as you know that stars token is issued as a real stars token, then you have everything you need. Anytime you have something that comes in where you're not sure it's a real stars token, you'd have to validate that. And for us, I work closely with BitTails and help them build out their infrastructure for the stars tokens. And I asked them to build an endpoint as an existence check. So basically we'll return 3 booleans. It will say, is it stars? Is it spent? And does it exist? So this gives you all the information so that if you are receiving some stars token from outside of your application scope that you need to validate, you can call a simple single API to validate that. But generally the DXS guys, for example, they run their own indexes themselves, much like the ordinals run their own indexes for everything, right? So there is a few benefits, I think. I think the main thing is, I mentioned, is the data. And within your application, if you're already moving tokens around, you already know what's in it, and it's already embedded and it's immutable. So yeah, that's that. I mean, I think that's my main sort of benefits, I think.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for your participation.
Hello, I'm Garrett Krause, President, CEO of WorldVest and Troy Money, one of our first BSV projects that we are developing. And it's a tokenization of gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. We also have a few stable coins to assist in the onboarding and the off-ramp and on-ramps for purchase of gold. In addition to just owning gold or other precious metals and using them as store of value on the blockchain, you'll also be able to eventually use them as money. So the idea is to use the micropayments facilities in the BSV blockchain to actually allow users to, instead of going back to fiat and going to a credit card, you'll actually be able to go to a merchant and actually charge using gold or silver or platinum. So you'll be able to use the precious metals as money. So that's an exciting new development. We are not a crypto. We're not presenting ourselves as a crypto. We won't be trading on any exchanges. For our liquidity comes from the global spot markets, which are developed over the last 5,000 years. They're very mature. They're very liquid. Gold is the second most liquid commodity in the world, traded. So we access our liquidity through spot markets. And our token represents actual physical ownership of gold in a vault, not backed by gold, not one-to-one backed by gold like a crypto. We're actually direct ownership of your gold in the Brinks vault. So a few little twists to the tokenization of gold, which makes it much safer and better for investors to hold their gold. And now I'm going to present to you the Troy Money website and how you log in, and I'm going to show you the wallet and the assets in the wallet and how to do some transactions. So first of all, here's our website, basically showing the app, and the gold is in little boxes showing them in the vault. We have partners StoneX, Brinks, Tokenized, and WorldVest, which is my company. A little bit here, a little bit of information. Here's the 4 precious metals you'll be able to buy tokenized versions of. And then below that, we have our initial 2 stable coins for on-ramps and off-ramps. Real world utility. Again, the whole goal of this is to make fast and low-cost global payments using precious metals. And, a lot of people don't like to, you can use precious metals or stable coin for the low-cost global payments. A lot of people don't like to transact in BSV. A lot of merchants don't like to use BSV or accept BSV because they don't understand it, but they do understand USD, Euro, gold, silver, and they will have global adoption of accepting that for payments. Very important is trusted third parties. Whenever you're tying a real world asset to a blockchain, you have to trust somebody. So we've picked the two global 100 Fortune 100 companies, StoneX and Brinks, two of the most trusted third parties for precious metals in the world. And so we've decided that you're only going to use the best trusted counterparties to protect your assets, and so that our token holders know that their tokens are tied to actual ownership. There's a little screenshot of the app, desktop and wallet app. It's very easy to get in. You sign up, you go through your KYC, AML, you deposit your first funds in Euro or USD for now, and then you just go in and buy your gold and other precious metals. So I'm going to take you through a demo now. Sign in. We've signed in through tokenized. So I'm going to pick my wallet, my user ID, enter my password, and now it'll check my credentials, which means it's going to go to the app, the authenticator, to make sure it's me and not somebody else using my login, and I have to third party confirm. Once I confirm, it will open up the Troy Money wallet. As you can see in our wallet, it's a very simple layout. It's very simple, easy to use. These are the 4 precious metals we have in our wallet right now. The unit values of the metals, gold, palladium, platinum, silver, the total balances. Here's my available balance. And then down here, I have my BSV, how much BSV I have. I always need BSV in the wallet to do transactions and to authenticate transactions. You don't need a lot of it. I got $2, plenty to do probably a year's worth of transactions or more, but you got to have some BSV. I also have some Euro in there to buy gold with, or if I want to sell my asset, it will go into Euro or USD, and then that gets wired to my account if I'm exiting. So so that's a very simple wallet. We also have something that we're developing on the side. It's an investment, Troy Invest, where through tokenized, we'll be able to tokenize other real world assets. So not gold, not silver, but actual real estate, mining properties, bonds, debt. So investors will be able to use their Troy Money app to actually participate in the investing in real world assets that are tokenized on the blockchain. So it's a $30 trillion industry that's coming, and we are setting the Troy Money Wall up to access those investments through the third-party exchanges that will open. Now, we're going to go back and go through a simple send transaction or a buy transaction. So if I want to buy instruments, okay, I'm going to go to buy order. I'm going to do Troy Gold. I'm going to buy, I don't know how many ounces I want, but I want to buy like $2,000 worth. So if I hit $2,000, it will tell me, do I want to pay in BSV? Do I want to pay in Euro? Do I want to pay in USD? So I'm going to pay this one in USD. Now that will, $2,000 will buy me 1.00030 ounces. So it automatically calculates the ounces based on what you're at. It will confirm, it will show review buy order, and then this will be the submit. Now, this is a demo. We're not live yet. So this will be once you submit the demo, once you request, it will now send you back confirmation. We will have the authenticator accept that. So it'll be you'll have to accept the order, and it will process right into your wallet. You can also sell. Same. You can sell the same way. Very easy. I want to sell my gold. I want to sell $1,000. Got to make a payment. I want to be paid out in Euro. Let's say I'm in Europe. I want to be paid out in Euro. And again, the same thing. It will calculate the Euro. It will calculate the transaction. And I hit submit, and it will be connected to the StoneX API. and that sell order will go directly to the COMEX, the global spot markets, and you'll get and you'll be instantly settled. No cryptocurrency, no crypto exchange, no Binance, no transferring of your tokens to a centralized exchange, direct to the APIs at StoneX for execution. Also, a feature in here is I want to send. So I want to send, let's say I want to send gold. I want to send, I owe somebody $2,500 worth of gold. I'm going to send it to dentest15 at bv.tkz.id. I hope that's the right address. dentest15 is our lead developer. So I owe him $2,500 for salary. I'm going to say salary. I'm going to review the transaction. It's going to send 1.250.375 ounces of gold because I'm paying him in gold. I can also send euro. I can send USD. I can send silver. I can send anything. So now I'm going to go send now. This is working. So now it's going to confirm my transfer on my app, on my phone. I have to approve the transfer. And when I approve the transfer, voila, in seconds, I've just sent 1.25 ounces of gold from Fort Lauderdale, Florida to Australia. And that cost me 0.001354 cents. So fractions of a penny to send a salary to Dan in gold across the world. And it executed. You can get all the blockchain details on the execution if I want. Here's what's on chain. Here's the transaction. Here's what happened. So Dan's transactions on chain. I close that up. If I want to see those transactions, I want to see Dan's transactions. You can see. Oh, I didn't know it automatically. I reset the thing. Hang on one second. So Dan's transactions shows in your history. These are all the instruments I've sent. This is all my history. Sent Dan 1.25 ounces of gold. It's subtracted from my gold at 9:18 a.m. Florida time. So very simple. And if you go to my home, you'll see that now I have 41,194 in my balance because I sent some Troy gold to Dan. So right now it's a very easy app. Phase 1 launch will be very simple. Tokenize has been outstanding to work with and integrate with. Their tokenization protocol is very, very effective for global transactions, financial instruments, tokenization of real world assets. Some of the new features that we will add to this is we will have lending so that anytime you can borrow up to 80% of your total balance. So if you say, hey, I need $30,000, I have an emergency medical procedure, but I don't want to sell any of my investments, you can take and do a signature draw up to 80%. You can draw your $30,000. We will use your balance. We'll use your assets as collateral. No approvals, no credit line checks, no bank checks, no nothing. It's just a straight signature loan draw. And you can either pay it back by selling your assets down the road, or you can pay it back by regular loan payback. So that's the app. It's very simple. The payment version of this will be, you'll be able to take your cell phone into any merchant that accepts our Troy money, and you'll be able to do a QR code to QR code payment, which will effectively be just like a send, a sell, and send. So you're basically sending gold or using a payment function to send gold to the merchant in exchange for the goods and services you're buying. So it'll be another feature that will be part of the wallet. So that's my demo for today. Thank you very much. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to me.
A very good platform, an amazing platform. Do you think that it's going to be difficult, the adoption, because of the having to have some BSV to use it?
I'll tell you, wow, yeah, this is a limitation in so here's how we've accomplished that. We have an automatic top up, and you don't have to go buy BSV. We will sell you the BSV So we just finished this feature where when you get low on BSV, the app will tell you, and you go in and you go in and hit a button and you buy $5 worth of BSV, and you don't have to go to exchange. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to do anything. It'll come from our wallet. We'll have the BSV, Troy Money, and we're just basically sending it to you so that you can keep transacting. So it won't be frictionless, but you won't have to go and try and find your BSV.
Yes. Yeah,
You just
if
hit
not,
the
this will
button.
be-
Yeah, we recognize that, but there's just no other way to run a blockchain without BSV, and it's very small amounts. So I think every year you probably have to buy $2 or $3 worth of BSV. But we've made it so easy that it's a one-tap automatic authentication. You just hit buy. It's called top up, and whenever your wallet gets below, I think 3 cents or something, whatever, it will just give you a warning saying, please top up your BSV. You hit a button and your BSV shows up in your account in seconds. So we've made it so that it's easy, it's transparent, and you don't have to go find it. You don't have to go
Another
bid for it.
exchanges, yes.
Because listen, how hard is it going to be to buy $3 worth of BSV to operate your app for a year?
Yeah.
Right? It's just like so we're just going to have we have a bunch of BSV in our wallet, and basically once you ask for it, we just send it over. So you can buy 10 cents worth of BSV. I can send you 8 cents worth of BSV, and that'll probably last you 8 transactions or more. So we're going to make that very easy. But you know, the other thing that does is it educates the non-BSV users or the non-crypto users that they are on a blockchain, and gas is part of the blockchain, and fees are paid in the coin. So we'll also bring some awareness to BSV as a mechanism to drive the app and to drive the blockchain. So I think it'll be a positive.
So, and do you work with like a commission kind of revenue?
Yeah, our revenue model is twofold. We'll charge a small fee to buy and sell gold. To transfer gold, there'll be a small fee every time gold moves, but it's very small. It's a lot cheaper than if you were to try and go buy gold on the open market, or if you're even trying to buy a crypto on an open market, or you're trying to buy any asset. There's always a markup. There's a fee. So we're going by volume, and where we're going to really make our money is twofold. Lending, we'll make money lending to customers, basis points, and we'll make money in the merchant transactions. So when it becomes merchant transactions, we will charge the merchant, instead of the 3.75 to 3.9 they get charged now from Visa, MasterCard. We'll charge them like a quarter point. So they can accept gold or stable coin or digital currency for like a quarter point instead of paying 3.75 to Visa. So they will be incentivized to save 3.5% on every charge by accepting digital currencies. And that's going to be a game changer. If you see the amount of money these merchants charge customers, the merchant fees are for customers. So that on a global adoption, I think that's a good platform. And then there'll just be, we will have fees built into the protocol. But compared to the deflation, compared to the risk of having fiat currency, compared to the risk of having money in a bank, to pay 0.5% or 1% above spot on an appreciating asset is small compared to having to deal with the risks of associating yourself with fiat. And if you were to go buy gold at a gold dealer right now, you'd be paying 107, 7% above the spot price of gold. So what our app really does is it gives you institutional access to gold spot at the best prices in the world. and it gives that access to everybody equally. So you have, right now, the big companies like Goldman Sachs, the biggest companies in the world, they get access to the best prices. But you and me as customers, you and me as small people in the world, we don't get access to the best prices. Our prices are marked up quite a bit. So what our app does is it allows level the playing field. It allows users to access vaulted gold for very low, if any, storage fees. So you don't have to pay to store your gold. And it allows you to move your value across the world instantly. It allows you to take your value with you if you move country to country. It allows you never have to move your gold. If you have 10 kilograms of gold over a course of a lifetime, and you're moving from one country to another or one state to another, now you got to move your gold. So your gold is in New York vault, or your gold is in a Swiss vault under Swiss or New York law, the strongest two laws in the world. And you'll never see your gold. You'll never have to move your gold. You'll never have to secure your gold. And more importantly, you'll never be a target because your gold won't be at home. Exactly. So your gold moves, you have spending power, you have immediately access to liquidity. And the most important thing about our app and gold on the blockchain is you have instant access to liquidity. So you got liquidity by form of an instant sale on the global spot market. You can have your money the next day, instant cash at any amount, or you can borrow against your assets and have cash the next day. No approvals, no credit checks, no nothing, just borrow against your assets. So for emergencies, you always have access to gold. So it's vaulted gold for security, safety, inflation risk, hedge against inflation, but it's also knowledge and comfort that you always have instant liquidity.
Let's go to the questions that two assistants asked. And one was, what is your experience with the Bitcoin chain? Started in
2017 as one of the first people to tokenize a real world asset on Ethereum. When in the height of the .com, the ICO boom, when everybody was doing ICOs in 2017, nobody wanted to do a regulated asset. Nobody wanted to do a security token. They all wanted an unregulated crypto assets. Well, roll forward 6 years, look what's happened to the crypto assets. They're all being charged. They're all going to jail. All these. So I started very early because I have 38 years experience in securities and capital markets. And so I wanted to take an asset that I owned, a bauxite mining asset in Africa, and I basically tokenized it. I didn't go raise any money. I didn't need money. I just wanted to tokenize it to do it. So I was one of the first three people in the world, the first three securities tokens ever minted on Ethereum. What I found on Ethereum is that it didn't work very well. It was hard. It was slow. The ecosystem wasn't there. And it was early days, so everybody was trading cryptocurrencies, and nobody really wanted to build platforms for regulated instruments on the blockchain. So I kind of just let it go, and I kind of monitored the market. And then when I was planning to do this gold project, because I am in the gold business, I am a miner of gold. I do produce gold in Africa every day and export and sell. So I basically used my infrastructure to say, hey, everybody that I know, all my friends manually, they come to me, and I have a manual spreadsheet. I have a manual operation where I buy gold, and I have 57 investors that own gold, and it's managed by a spreadsheet, right? Literally Excel spreadsheet, who owns the gold and how much do they own, but they're all trusted parties of mine. So I thought, hey, let's take this to the blockchain. Let me get this spreadsheet. So instead of offering to 57 people, I can offer it to millions of people. And from somebody that wanted to buy $15 worth of gold every month to somebody that wanted to buy $10 million worth of gold in a one-time transaction. It's the same across the board. So I started looking for blockchains. I looked at Polymesh. I looked at Stella. I looked at Polygon. I looked at all the Ethereum layers blockchain, because at the time I didn't know much about Bitcoin. And remember, I'm not a crypto guy. I'm not a tech guy. So I didn't know about Bitcoin. This year, I was introduced to Bitcoin a little bit, that you can actually build smart contracts on Bitcoin and you can actually tokenize assets. It was just in March, April of 2023. And then I watched the London Blockchain Conference virtually this year. I think that was May, June.
Mhm.
And I saw some of the great people on stage, James Belding being one of them. And I reached out to them and I started asking questions. I started asking questions about Dr. Wright. I started asking questions about BSV. I started watching videos. I started watching due diligence. I had to learn everything. Most importantly, James and I had hours and hours worth of calls. I learned about the tokenized protocol. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's take my manual spreadsheet. Let's take my StoneX relationship and my Brinks relationship. Let's take all my trusted relationships and tokenize on the BSV blockchain using tokenized. I had nothing to lose. I don't have any shareholders. I don't have any investors. I didn't have to have any approvals. I just said, let's do it. Worst thing, it didn't work. If it didn't work, then I would go somewhere else, right? I had nothing to lose by trying tokenized and BSV. Nothing. And I just put aside all the controversy and I learned about BSV and I literally have fallen in love with it. Now we're doing a few more projects on it. We're creating a fund. We're trying to bring other money into it. I'm assisting other BSV entrepreneurs to raise money because that's what I do in my life. And there is some controversy around BSV. We all know what it is, but the tech is solid, and it's just going to take some more time to get through the controversy. And it's going to take some real use cases on BSV. It's going to take some of these companies that are just rolling out, like Troy Money, but there's 6 or 7 other companies that I know that are tremendous use cases for blockchain. Here's the thing. Even on the Ethereum side, on the Bitcoin side, there hasn't really been any real big success in blockchain, except for cryptocurrency trading of very speculative assets. That's really been the only real use case for blockchain. But the future is big for blockchain. And that's where I think everybody's setting up for, is what is going to be the biggest use case for blockchain. For me, I think it's tokenization of real world assets and financial contracts. I think it's taking old school, which is what I did for 38 years, marrying it with new school, which is the blockchain and tokenization protocols like tokenized, and bringing them together so that you change the dynamic of how people invest and transact around the world.
Wow, I love that story. I didn't know that you started early this year. It's great. All the work you've done
we jumped
progressed.
in. We jumped in. I made a decision. James was very accommodating. It was perfect timing for him. Together as 2 companies, we did it. I hired a great programmer, CTO now, and he used to be a tokenized CTO. And so I hired him, so he knew the tokenized protocol. He wrote all the code, and we've been just working since July. I think it was July 1st we started coding, and we're almost ready to launch.
Wow. The progress in such a short time is massive.
Yeah, it was a short time, a lot of work. And, this is very regulated. So people say, why can't you launch faster? Why can't you launch faster? This gold is a very regulated global commodity. You don't just tokenize and launch. You have all kinds of global regulations. You got all kinds of anti-money laundering regulations. You got all kinds of KYC regulations. It's not crypto. It's not just launch a token, mint a token, and have no rules. This is why things take a little longer in this space. Our tech is done. Our tech is so done before I'm got all my compliance and guidance and regulation stuff done. So the tech is ahead of me, but I will launch Troy Money when I'm ready. I'm in no hurry. It will be perfect, and I'm going to do it fully compliant with all laws around the world.
Yeah, we all know that the legal part of it is a pain point.
Well, just look at what happened. Just look at what happened in the last couple of days with all the cryptocurrency exchanges and all of the indictments and all the arrests and all the SEC actions. I don't plan to be in any of those
No,
in the future.
no.
So that's why I am very patient. I know a lot of people want this launched yesterday. A lot of people are like, launch, and I'm like, I'll launch when I feel comfortable that we're 100% ready.
Of course. Okay, so moving to the next question is,
Yep.
in your opinion, what would you identify as the most significant obstacle in designing tokens that accurately represent real-world assets?
So this is my kind of specialty. It's also my passion. Being 38 years in total business experience, but most of those years in raising money, investment banking, fund management, making sure you have trusted counterparty to mitigate the risk. The key to, this is not Bitcoin. This is not just a digital asset. This is a digital asset tied to a real world asset. Now, it could be gold. It could be apartment building. It could be bonds. But these are real world companies operating under real old school laws. So the key to making this seamless is to have a perfect structure with your tokenization protocol and your smart contract to tie real laws that are operated in the real courts of the world, whatever jurisdiction, with the code and with the transferability laws on the internet. So you're basically, like I said, you're bringing old school with new school, and there's always got to be trust. I know a lot of people in crypto go, "Oh, we need total decentralization. I don't want to have to trust anybody. I just want to buy and sell my token." Well, let's just look at that. When you go to Binance to buy and sell your token, or you go to Coinbase to buy and sell your token, you're trusting them, aren't you? You're sending your token to a centralized exchange. You have to trust them. Okay? So when you're dealing with a real world asset, you must trust the trustee that's holding the gold. You must trust the apartment manager that's managing the apartment that you own a token in. You must trust somebody. So finding the best people, the most trustworthy counterparties, I think is the most important thing to making a real world asset investable. The other thing that is important, and so important, is trusted data. So the data on that asset, where that asset is held, what are the rent rolls of the apartment building you own a piece of? Can I trust the appraisal? Can I trust the company that did the appraisal? Can I trust the management company that's collecting the rents for all the token holders? So when you're dealing in real world assets beyond gold is easy. It's in a Brinks vault and you have a couple of very good trusted. But when you're dealing with a cash flowing real world asset like a company or a security or an apartment building or real estate, there's more there. You have to trust. You have to ensure that you're dealing with people that are trusted to manage your asset and keep it in perfect order, because your token is representative of the value of that asset. If that asset goes down the tubes, or the rents don't get collected, or there's no tenants in the building, then your token's going to hurt. So I think that's data and trusted counterparty risk as mitigated as you can will give you the best real world assets on the blockchain.
So I think there are no more questions.
You want me to do a summary? You want me to do a little summary? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So to summarize what Troy Money and WorldVest tokenized and the group that I put together is, not only are we creating a tokenization of precious metals and stable coins, but those will lead into the tokenization and trading of many real world assets around the world, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week trading But one of the other things that we've got coming is a real tokenized asset exchange, which will be a globally regulatory compliant exchange where these assets, whether they're tokenized on the platform, whether they're tokenized by us or whether they're tokenized by other sponsors, they'll all have a place to trade and settle their assets in a compliant regulatory matter. So for investors, they'll have a place to come. They'll have a place to look for these assets, look for yield, look for security, look for gold. Troy Money Wallet will be the access point in and out of these assets. And other sponsors and other asset owners can post their assets up in the exchange, and people from all over the world can own a piece. So it's a very big future. The CEO of BlackRock says it's a $30 trillion industry by 2030, probably 2035, but 2030, it's supposed to be the tokenization of $160 trillion worth of global assets. Even if they do 10% or 20% of those in the next 10 years, that's a big market to go after. And on the BSV blockchain, through tokenized, through Troy Money, through WorldVest, those are our key target. That's what we're going after.